All right, let's see here. It's up a little bit. Looks like we got sound to OBS, no desktop sound. Oh. Can hear myself. We don't want that. Can still hear myself. Okay, check. Do I hear myself? No. Okay, much better. Let's pause that. We don't even really need that. Let me put the chat over here. Thank you, Paul, for the heads up on the sound. Yeah, I had the preview in one of the windows was running, and I heard myself too. I definitely don't want that. Okay, I think we're ready. Let's go. So, I guess let's do a quick introduction. Hello to everybody who might be new or hasn't seen before. My name is Tim, and I go by FoamyGuy on GitHub and Discord. Similar on Twitch, it's FoamyGuy_Twitch because somebody else beat me to the name there, but I tend to use that name when I can. I will be working on CircuitPython stuff. Specifically, I'll be picking up kind of where I left off on this touch interface. I made a new button for it last night. When I left this yesterday, we had like a gradient button in there, and I spent some time playing with pixel art a little bit last night while I was watching something else, and came up with this new button. It's interesting. It wouldn't have been possible to do that without the sprite button. The way that this one looks, I kind of tried to give it a bit of a like depth feel to it. It didn't come out quite like I had imagined, but it does look pretty cool, and it does show off the new sprite button capabilities. I will say the camera and the angle that I'm capturing it at doesn't quite do it justice. I feel like that's kind of a lot for the PyPortal screen, honestly. We see that kind of a lot with my particular camera setup and the lighting that it needs. Like, I end up having to put it at an angle, and then when you view it at an angle, it looks a bit washed out. So the button is kind of like a pinkish purple. I really was trying to make it pink, and it came out more purple than I had intended. Anyway, that's really diving straight into the nitty-gritty. This interface here, though, is what we'll be continuing on with today, and I think something else we might do today is jump into the core a little bit, because in this project, which again, this is kind of what we're replicating, they have this, they have the LEDs like Ruby and I don't know the name of any of the other LEDs. The red LED's name is Ruby, I'm pretty sure. Say hi to Ruby. See if they'll click the icon, but I think you can click the LEDs. Maybe not, actually. Every time you tap the button, the icon image will change. Let's see. Why not actually press it? Ah, there it is. Oh, okay, yeah. They don't tap on the LEDs, actually. They tap on the icon button above there. What if we made it to where you just tap on the LED itself, though, instead of the button above it? I think that might be kind of nice. It actually does, even when it starts, it doesn't have one of the LEDs, and then you press the button the first time. But right there, it doesn't have anyone, and it says tap the icon. Which I guess we could do that. I kind of like the idea of touching the image itself instead of a button above it. So I think I may take a peek into some of the stuff in the core to see if we can't make that possible. Anyway, though, before I do just jump straight in, I guess let's wrap up the intro. Again, this is what we're working on. We're writing CircuitPython code for this device. If you don't know what CircuitPython is, you can, of course, ask in the chat if you're watching live here. Let's see. Is that getting picked up? Not sure. You can also learn more here at CircuitPython.org. And if you want to hang out on the Discord, which is linked down below, you can join all of the folks who are working on CircuitPython and the related projects over on that Discord. And it is an open source project, so you can help develop yourself. You can contribute code or testing or just ideas or whatever you want. You can also help by purchasing hardware from Adafruit. This is the company that is paying the folks who work on the project full-time, as well as some folks like myself who work on the project part-time. So if you purchase hardware from there, definitely those of us that do get paid to work on the project appreciate it for sure. I was going to pull up the docs for OnDiskBitmaps. Sorry, I'm a little bit... OnDiskBitmap, I'm a little bit... scatterbrained, I guess, just kind of going in all different directions here this morning. I think, though, OnDiskBitmap, I think it has XY and a width and a height. Well, the bitmap itself doesn't have an XY, but the tile grid, which you need to put it onto in order to show it, does have an XY. And then the bitmap itself does have a height and width. So between those four properties, XY, height, and width, we do actually have the ability to check for clicks, like check if somebody touched in that, in that item, the image, the OnDiskBitmap in this case. Display button. This library right here, though, takes this idea of matching the XY width height of the button against the XY coordinates of the touch, and it makes this little helper function contains. I thought it made contains. Is there no contains in here? Contains? There it is. Okay, I just missed it. So this logic uses the X and Y as well as the width and height of, in this case, the button, and then a touch point, it compares it to those values that it calculates to tell you whether the touch is inside of the rectangle that represents the button. I think we could do the same with OnDiskBitmap, or maybe actually... Maybe tile grid actually is the right place to do that, because it also has width and height. Although they're split across multiple properties, you have to multiply them together. But it does have XY, and you have to use a tile grid to show an OnDiskBitmap or a standard bitmap. So if we could actually make tile grid clickable, then that would be best. And when I say clickable, really what I mean is I just want to give it a contains function like this, so that you can write the exact same code that you do today for a button, but you could use it on a tile grid, which means basically you can just have a clickable image, whatever image you want. You could make it be an image of a button, you could make it be an image of an LED character, you could make it be an image of Blinka, it could be any image, and you would be able to click on it and call this contains method to test whether it's been clicked, and then take whatever action you want from that. I think I'll dive into that a bit today, but I do want to start just filling out more of this. So we have our on-off button. I do have on-off logic on it. It functions as kind of a toggle button right now, instead of a a standard, like you press it down and it remains pressed, and then you let go and it it unpresses. I have this right now toggling. So you click it and it toggles to off. You click it again and it toggles to on. Let's make that turn on the LED, I think is what this does on the back, which is NeoPixel. Let's wire that up, and then we'll also put in the second button here for changing the color. Bitmap saver. Okay, first of all, why are we inside a bitmap saver? But more importantly, what did we change inside bitmap saver? Seems reasonable. Interesting. I don't know why. Variable reference. I don't know, this must have been part of a PR or something. Get this one first. Well, I need quite so much of these things open. So let's initialize the NeoPixel. And I think the original one of these was probably using PyPortal library? Oh, maybe not. Nope, actually it wasn't. It was just initializing the NeoPixel, so we'll actually do the same. We could maybe use the colors as well. Although I don't know that we don't really need a black color. Black is just going to be off regards to a NeoPixel. Brightness, that's way too bright though. Let's get that down some. Love to have these in a list. Yeah, if these were in a list, this code... we wouldn't need this big if statement here. So let's grab those, but then let's put them in a list. I think we really need black though. Black we can just hard code for off. I'll be back in a minute. I'm gonna fill up my water. Okay. Also, I had to stop the cat from climbing a new thing that he has never climbed before. Which will be interesting. I'm sure that's going to be a fun new cat climbing game. Let me shuffle the chat windows back around here, sorry. Okay, so we can just have like current color also. This can be a number. It's going to be an index of the colors in this list, and we can just +1 on it whenever they press the button. Cycle it back around to 0 when we need, and then we don't really need an if statement anymore. We can just access the color from the list, set it into the NeoPixel. So we could actually hook up that part of it right away. We already have on-off button. When it is on, we can just say this. When we want it to go off, we can just say fill it black. Which I'll fill in that just to make it clear that it's black. You can actually just leave it at 0 by itself. I do kind of like to put the whole hex thing so that like it's immediately apparent that it is a color. There's definitely a fill. I don't know which NeoPixel it thinks it's reading. Where did I import it from? Yeah, I don't know why it thinks it doesn't have fill. Fill definitely exists though. Blinka code, or what is this? No? I guess fill maybe comes from pixel buff? And so NeoPixel doesn't explicitly have fill, but pixel buff does. I don't know. It would be nice if this would know about it, though, honestly. It's weird that it doesn't know about this. But it does work, I'm almost positive. So currently it's off. We can click that to go on. Does that say? Maybe it doesn't. Is it really not? Oh, right. Yeah, okay. NeoPixel is obviously the library, right? We have import NeoPixel. Here's what I've done wrong. Import NeoPixel. This is the library, right? The module. Pixel right here, this is the name of our variable that we initialized a NeoPixel class and stored it into here. Down here, of course, this should be pixel.fill, not neopixel.fill. And then there it now does. Okay, so in this case, actually, PyCharm giving me that warning was unbeknownst to me telling me that my code was wrong. So it was good that I wondered about that because it actually turns out that we just did it wrong. We weren't putting the name of our variable, instead we were putting the name of our module, which the module itself, of course, doesn't have fill, but the instance of that class does. There we go. And the light's on. We don't currently have a way to cycle through it, but we can turn it off by clicking the button again. So next, let's make the color button over here that's going to cycle through. Would be interesting if these sprite buttons had like a internal static copy of all of the images that it needs, all the sprites basically. That way we could make a second sprite button using the same bitmaps and not have to load them into memory second time. Right now I think we're gonna make this and it's gonna end up essentially loading two more copies of, well, one more copy of each of these bitmaps. Maybe it should just say color. I don't know if we're gonna have enough room for change color. Maybe, yeah, probably not enough room at scale 4 rather. Maybe 3, we'll see. I'll need to go PR that change as well. I just kind of threw that in yesterday. These I think I'll just leave the same. It's weird the way this draws. Fills in this box first, and then fills in the outer stuff. But yeah, color does fit there. And of course there's no touch hooked up yet because we haven't wired it up yet, but we'll go here. We don't really need this. So I did add some debouncing logic here where I'm storing the previous state and testing against it. I think what we'll do here is just say and not. Is that what we want? I don't know, we might change this. So if we touch it and it was not already selected, then we're gonna make it selected. And we're also gonna change the color. Wrap it back around to 0. If it gets too large, and then we should also go ahead and actually set the color in the NeoPixel. So I think this now will cycle through. So let's turn it on. Starts on white. Okay, we need to do the unselected. Yeah, we don't. We can go on and off, but we can't touch this another time because it's not unselecting. If there's no touch, we know for sure This can be unselected. Do we need anything here? I guess we could just stay selected until there's no touch. That seems fine. Yeah, there we go. So now this one is not a toggle button, it's just a regular push button. Push it down, it changes to show that it's being pushed, and then it cycles the color, and they'll just run through all the different colors. Oh. Wait, how do we get, hold on. Somehow we were getting to off, but the light was staying on. Not doing it anymore though. Okay, I see what happened. But, well, no, because then the light turned off. So I'd probably rather that sliding didn't work, but that's not quite exactly what we were seeing. We could kind of abuse this debouncing logic here. We could set this to true, and even though it's not actually intrinsically true in the universe, the on-off button was not pressed just because we pressed the color button. This would, I think, stop the slide action from working. Yes. Oh. Oh. Yeah. So this... Yeah. This causes the NeoPixel to turn on. Right. So we should say here, actually, only if on-off button dot selected, then do this. Otherwise, we just increment and do nothing. Yeah, good call. It's intended to be separate. The color button is intended to just do the colors separately, and then so then if that's off, oh, I guess the other thing is we don't set the state at the beginning, so like it just keeps whatever the NeoPixel was doing. We might as well start out by going fill 0. Let's turn that off to start with. On off. Well, on off, I mean, it won't select a color, but it will turn it to the color it's currently on. So now we should be able to change color. We have no feedback to see like what the color actually is currently. But then we can turn it on, we can change it, turn it off, we could change it again. Now we got something different. It was blue and now it's pink. We turn it off, cycle it a few more. Now it's red. Yeah, this is the behavior we want, I think. That's true. Yeah, that's a good point, I guess. Yeah, it does. It essentially does pretty much have the same logic. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, black. It's basically just always choosing black. Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, C. Grover. I was gonna mention this to you yesterday if you were around. Are you interested / willing to PR your touch calibrator to this? I just used this the other day again, and it made me wish that there was a copy of it in the touchscreen library. Maybe even, honestly, you could put this one in the STMP library. This one is not what we need for the PyPortal, this one is. But if you're interested and willing, I would say please go ahead and PR these calibrations as examples into the touchscreen for the built-in one, and then the SMTP, what is it, 610 or whatever that library is for the other SPI touchscreens. If you're up for that, I think that'd be awesome to have those examples in there. I kind of want to show the feedback of like what the color is, but there's not... I don't know exactly where I would do it. I guess we could put it in the text in the button, like maybe it could say color and then green. I don't know if yellow or purple, those are kind of our biggest color words. I don't know if those would fit on the button. That gonna fit? I mean, it doesn't not fit, I guess, but it doesn't look very good. I guess we could just do the color, the actual color instead of the word color, but then it's just like a button that says white at the beginning, right? And you click it and it changes to blue or whatever's next. It doesn't like really tell the user what it's doing very well. Yeah. I don't like that as much. Maybe we just put it on one of the pages. I think I do like that, actually. Let's just put it on one of the pages. With the old, are you still watching much faster today, I feel like. Just about did that. Also wanted to include the rotational arg. Touchscreen, but I couldn't get cookie cutter to work. Is touchscreen? Oh, I guess it doesn't have... Doesn't have rotation. You just, when you initialize it, you give it the pins in the order you want. Right. Yeah. It would be kind of cool to not worry as much about which pin order you use and instead just be able to say like orientation 0 or 90, 270. I am curious. Typically, if you're just trying to like add stuff to the existing library, I don't think you need to use cookie cutter, but maybe you mean like pre-commit checks and stuff like that. Cookie cutter would be really if you're trying to spin up a whole new library. Which I guess like you could take that repo you have and then maybe share that in the community bundle. In that situation, I guess you would probably be running cookie cutter if you want to get all of the like ancillary files and stuff, all the licenses and readmes and all that other stuff that comes with it, actions. You could PR it to touchscreen though, just like into the existing one as a new example file. The calibration, and then if you wanted to also PR the adding an orientation to here, you could do that as well as a PR, in which case you don't necessarily need to run cookie cutter. You can just check out this repo and make the changes. I'm gonna take my hoodie off. I'll be back in just a second. Okay. So I think here we can just go. First, we do need to be mindful a little bit about the iPortal as well. Honestly, these are probably too big for the PyPortal. Yeah, right now we have these actually just hard-coded at 160. Maybe we should not do that. I think I chose 160 because it's half of the width, which is the small side because we're in portrait. Recommit, I gotcha. Python dev requirement. Yeah, I think we should probably not hard code those. Well, but hasn't set the orientation yet. This way now it will be 160 on this screen, but less on the smaller PyPortal. That's an issue and leave it up to an expert. Yeah, I'm definitely willing to help get it into a PR. I think it'd be great to be able to share it though with all the folks that use touchscreen for sure. If I save it like this on this device, it will not be any different. Yeah. We could also use it here. We could also use it here and here. And now I think this should also run on the PyPortal better. Yeah, no, I hear you. It should theoretically be possible on Windows. However, I will say, like, I have a lot less ability to help troubleshoot Windows. I'm gonna plug my phone in real fast. Stop it from apparently just looping a video, which I guess is what it's been doing. Play that won't die now. Yeah, it is definitely a steep learning curve to get stuff just right. I kind of take for granted. I've gotten to the point where I can get through, like, as long as I kind of stick to my one little pathway of exactly how I know how to do it, I can get through it pretty quick, and kind of make it look easier than it is. But it is a bit of a learning curve for sure if you're not super used to doing it. Interesting. Okay, I do want to try this, I think, on the PyPortal. Need a different USB cable. On Mac, I use GitHub Desktop quite well with Atom. I just installed GitHub Desktop the other day. It was the first time I tried the desktop app. It does seem pretty helpful. I will say a lot of the stuff that it seems to have in the interface is the same kind of stuff that I use PyCharm for. So they definitely, like, they solved a lot of the stuff that the other tools kind of make it easier. Like the visualizations and stuff especially help me. This one doesn't really want to lean the same way. Of course, it might be upside down. I don't actually know. What is this? Oh. No, unplug, replug. Leaving to take a nap. Last night I slept only... Oh, no. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for hanging out for a bit. Hope you're feeling well rested and such later on after the nap. $725. We could update that. Oh yeah. In fact, we not only can we update that, we need to update that because it doesn't work on that version. I think I was testing the error message. Worked well for the dozens of repos. Yeah, I need to I'm gonna try to make it a point to do more in that Git desktop app to try to get a feel for the workflow inside of that, and then eventually maybe I'll try to make videos that show the process for CircuitPython libraries and PRs inside that GitHub desktop app. I have a lot of like fumbling my way through it to figure out the right way to do stuff before I'd be super comfortable like really pointing other people in the direction of what to do, but It does seem like it could be a big help to folks who are not as comfortable with command line stuff, which is kind of me. Like, I've come a long way on command line stuff, but command line Git stuff, like, I'm typically fairly scared of, truthfully, because it has the capability of going wrong quickly and in ways that are difficult to recover from if you don't already know what you're doing with command line Git, which is how we got into this mess to begin with. So I do like the visual interfaces that make it very clear what all the changes are and what you're actually doing and stuff. I will say they did a pretty good job putting that stuff together. Do we have a tab layout test already? Tab layout touch test? I mean, I guess this is just the stock touch, probably. Yeah. Okay, we can just overwrite that. Some stuff actually will fail because we don't have the right sprites. And in fact, I'll probably need to copy those off of the other device here. Why don't I just plug that one in too? I ended up with these ones. I actually made a couple of different ones. I'd like to make new tabs as well. Uh-oh. Probably don't need all of these. Or I could find better stuff to delete though. What is I have this? Whoa. Oh wow, that is pretty big, I guess. Okay. What is CYOA? Oop. Oh, choose your own adventure. Right, this is like a library. This is all just a stock example though. Honestly, we could get rid of this stuff. Where's my trash thing? Why does this always get turned off? I don't understand. I've turned show hidden on several times. And I never turn it off, but somehow it ends up being off. We'll eventually need the LEDs also, like Ruby and the blue one, green one, whose names I don't know. Billy, Gus, and Ruby. I guess Gus is probably green and Billy is probably blue. Okay, yeah, so this one is too big. Well, either the buttons are too big or the text is too big. It does run, which is pretty good. The touch works. Ooh, that's interesting. LED works as well. It's a little slower on this one, actually, which is interesting. I guess we could always just unscale it. I think our text is scaled ×2. Oh, that is terrible, isn't it? I need to work out a better overhead camera. This one doesn't like to lean away as well. Couldn't this get us to 1? Oh, it turned it to an F string for me. Interesting. Let's scale 1. Oh, I didn't fill it in. Ran into some crazy nested interdependencies when using command line. Yeah, I mean, it essentially, the thing about it is that programming microcontrollers actually is really quite technical and difficult. CircuitPython does a really good job of making it a lot easier than it should be, or than it really is, I guess. And a lot of how that works in my mind is like there is a group of people who has to kind of do a bunch of extra, more complex, more difficult work in order to make it so that the rest of that does work in the base case very easily. So the way that things are shared and all of the ancillary files and everything that goes along with it is a lot more complicated than a project without, but all of that stuff together allows it to be used by somebody with like basically no experience at all. So it is a trade-off. Definitely is a trade-off, and it's frustrating sometimes too. Like I definitely sympathize. Like there are days where pre-commit or Pylint just get on my nerves, and like I got to work on something else more fun for a bit and then come back to it. But I do think that's kind of the trade-off. There is a lot of extra work that goes into it to make it so that the using of it is so insanely easy that anybody can really do it. Hopefully, though, like as time goes on, we'll get more and more resources, more learn guides built up, more videos. I've done a couple now of like trying to make a video showing the process of certain parts of it. Some of them I think I'm guilty of. The videos make it look a little bit too easy. Like I chose stuff that didn't quite have as much problems that come up. But it's also a balancing act because like I don't necessarily think people want to watch like an hour-long video of something like that. So I need to figure out that sweet spot of like show myself struggling through it and getting through it. That way other people can see it, but also still be able to do it in a sizable chunk that somebody will actually want to watch the video. I think some resources like that would help though. Use is easy. Yeah, no, totally agreed. Totally agreed there. So I'm looking for the scale because what we've done was when we wrapped it based on the scale. Let's find, where did we use this? There we go. This will make it, I think, so it wraps correctly. Or not. Oh, okay, well I printed this, but I need to actually... And realistically, we don't need to print it. There we go. So now this is wrapped. Whoa. You know what I notice? This changes way faster between pages. Here, let me use the stylus so my hand's not covering it. See how fast that text changes? The scale must add overhead. Like quite a bit, because it's like noticeably slower. I mean, this almost feels like it's blinking from one to the other, whereas when it was scaled, it was like that like wipe effect, that like 90s image downloading one line at a time. That is actually insane how much quicker that is. I wonder if I messed something up in there, or if that's just the scale. I think what we'll do is maybe one of these days I'll go back and make like a super minimal example and try to find out like if that happens once we remove tab layout and all the rest of this stuff from happening. Just have a label, scale it, change it, or I guess it'll be hide show it in a group. That's what we'll do. But I wonder, because that is like markedly different almost to the point where I want to just unscale the Titano one and maybe just find a different font that's bigger. So I think what I'll do is add one more label to this page that tells you the current LED color. We need another list though. I think there's a way I can lowercase these. But I do not remember what it is. Toggle case. Control-Shift-U. That didn't work. Oh wow, okay. That not only did that not work, that also is like undoable. That was like Unicode. Control-Shift-U. Edit toggle case. Control-Shift-U. No. Weird. Control-Shift-U just does something else. It's trying to insert Unicode. Like I could type a number after that little U that shows up and then press enter and it would convert it to a character. I could have just retyped all of these faster than this. Oh well. This will make it 10 pixels below the other label, which is what I'm trying to do. Oh, Let me catch up here. Blinka, what do I need to update? Tile grid object has no attribute width. I assume you're running some kind of newish DisplayIO thing under Blinka DisplayIO, like with the Pygame display. Unfortunately, the answer might actually just be that Blinka doesn't have support for the same thing that's in the core right now. Whoa. Why are these all underscore? Yeah. If you wanted, well, I don't know where, if you're like, if it's deep inside of a library, this might be kind of a pain to bother with, but if you wanted it to work right now without changing Blinka DisplayIO, you could change the tilegrid.width to ._width, and it looks like that would work. I think the thing is, though, that core tilegrid is different right now, which actually you could say is kind of my fault, because I think that I am the one who added that property in the core, and I just didn't do it in Blinka, and I should have at the same time. Yeah. This is the PR that added it to the core, and I just never went back and did them in Blinka. And unfortunately, at this point, I've gotten used to them existing, and I've used them in a bunch of my recent widgets, so they won't work under Blinka DisplayIO until we update Blinka DisplayIO to actually have the same properties here. It wouldn't be that big of an update. It basically would be just like make a property inside here, Blinka DisplayIO tile grid, make 4 properties, one height and width that return these values, and then tile height and tile width would need to get stored on self, or I guess they could get divided back out of here, but it would make sense, I think, to just store them on self and then return those as well. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. I should do that. And actually, the Pygame display got recently fixed by somebody else to work with the current versions of Blinka and such as well, so it should work now, generally speaking, just not that stuff, but that is kind of like motivation for me to dive back into it, and I should make that change. Really, I should have done it back when this one and the core got merged, because ideally we should try to keep Blinka DisplayIO and core DisplayIO even, right? Fortunately, they have strayed a bit. Maybe I'll do that. Instead of messing with the touchable images here in a bit, maybe I'll do that in Blinka DisplayIO instead, since that's like a current thing that is technically sort of broken a bit, or at least different. Whereas the touchable OnDiskBitmap is, or tile grid, I guess we decided on, is not really necessary. It's a new feature rather than a thing that's currently not working as intended. Okay. Current color is white, red, yellow, green, blue, Oh, didn't get that one. Purple. Back to white. You know what's weird? The lack of scale on the labels also makes these buttons render quicker. Cause like this effect here was slower before as well. But we didn't change the scaling on that, only the label. So somehow the scaling of other things affects the drawing of other things. That is really weird. Image loader should stop processing the bitmap when a bitmap file went off screen. I'm not sure what you mean. Image loader, I don't think does anything with bitmaps while they're off the screen. Well, I mean, image loader, if you mean the library, Adafruit Image Load, all it's responsible for really is taking the BMP file and loading it into a bitmap object in memory. I guess it doesn't have any specific restriction to bitmaps that are on the display. Typically when you run it, though, you run it on a file in order to be able to then show the bitmap on the display. Yeah, that's definitely true. Enigma. That's definitely true about DisplayIO. I mean, like, I'm getting a better understanding of how it works internally. I think as time goes on, like, eventually I'll be able to step through more of the code and potentially, hopefully, improve some of the performance, or at least understand some of it better to figure out, like, best practices around what makes it weird and what doesn't. Okay. So we got this. I think, let's make that change to Blinka DisplayIO, actually. Thank you for mentioning that. That had totally slipped my mind after this PR. There's actually there's this one now as well, which is also going to be required if you do want to use the most recent widgets I've been working on. I should probably do both of those. And I think I'll do that instead of trying to mess with contains for OnDiskBitmap, although I do still think that would be helpful. This is more of a triage type thing, so it should get taken care of first, I think. These buttons feel very big, but they are kind of big in this one too. I think the difference is they're not square in this one. They're a little bit wider than they are tall, at least to my eye. Whereas these ones, they're perfectly square. I mean, I guess we could make them shorter. We'd have to either like keep two variables, or I don't know, we'd have to change more about it. Okay, I do want to run it real quick on the Titano and just make sure that I haven't broken anything on that side. Are there impacts to refreshing the screen when there are off-screen objects and scaled image bleed over? I'm not sure what you mean by scaled image bleed over. I think it depends on also how your things are off-screen. If they are off-screen, because their like X or Y value is bigger or smaller than the size of the screen, then I suspect that they do still get drawn. It still takes time to draw them. I don't actually know for certain. If they are hidden, like group.hidden, which is what the different pages here do, then I think that it should not really take time. But I don't actually know for certain. One thing I see is that our label is on top of some of the text. I think the problem is that we're not taking into account the scale. And so our scale 2 is working properly on this one to make the text bigger, but that is throwing off the location of the other one. Maybe we shouldn't base it off of the first label, and instead we should just base it off of size of the buttons. So let's actually do 0 and 1.0, and then anchored position, we're going to say 10 is fine, but Y is going to be display height minus button size minus 10. So then it will just be 10 pixels above the buttons. Plus 10, no. Display height is 320. Minus the LED button size, which is... Oh, no, height's 480 actually on this screen. .480 minus the button size, which is 160. It's 320 over 2. I thought that this would take into account scale. I mean, I could obviously just subtract more to move it up. I'm a bit confused, though, about why that's where it's at. I didn't even see it that time. Or 66. Hmm. I mean, I think this makes it visible. Closer, at least. Oh. This didn't refresh right. Okay. If I do 10 here, does it do what I expect? Maybe the scale, maybe it doesn't account for the scale? Maybe somehow I'm just thinking about the math wrong. Yeah. Hmm. I mean, the other thing I guess we could do is just... Oh, well, these haven't been created yet, though. Okay, I'm gonna put it like this because this works on both screens. And I'll move on for now, but I do want to circle back to this eventually and figure out why something is not lining up quite how I was thinking it should. I'm really not sure what it is. But obviously we got it showing and it does work, so it doesn't really matter too much. Okay. So we got the first page looking pretty good, and then of course these are visible on all the pages. So we'll fill in the other pages later, and I think what I'll do now is let's go do work on those changes for Blinka DisplayIO. It'll also give me a chance to play some with the Pygame display, which is always fun. Let's do open. It just starts Blinka, right? I'll open this because we'll use it to run some stuff. Oh, maybe I was wrong. It's Adafruit Blinka DisplayIO. Oh. Size props. Looks like I started it, actually. I did start it. Okay. I didn't make... Well, no, I couldn't have made a PR because I haven't even pushed this yet. I think maybe I started working on this one day and then realized that the Pygame display was not working. Like, I started making this change and then going to try to use the, maybe the tab layout or something else that I was working on, and noticed that the Pygame display was not working. Oh, right. Okay, these are just older commits, though, right? These are not something I did. Okay. And then I stopped at that time. Once the Pygame display, I think I tried a couple of things, didn't get it working, and then I just stopped and moved on to what I was actually working on, which at that time was the tab layout. And then it looks like I just never did circle back to putting in a PR for it. I always do this backwards. I don't know. Probably gonna get it wrong. Should have kept that open. I hate pop-ups with links in them that are like pop-up over other things that are also clickable. So you like move to try to click a thing that's clickable, and then all of a sudden a pop-up spawns the instant before you click, and then you click on a totally different thing. I wonder why this didn't pass. Ah. 5749. So the other one that actually has been added to the core now is changing the bitmap on the tile grid, which we will also need if we want to use the tab layout. Which might actually be harder. In the core, it turned out to be shockingly easy. Were they changeable in the core? Oh yeah. I don't think these are changeable actually. Yeah, we should actually not do the setters. For now. Maybe eventually we could have setters, but when and if we do, they should get added to both at the same time. Since the core doesn't have setters, we shouldn't have setters here. I have no idea if they would get treated correctly anyway. So it's probably better to leave them out. A, to match the core API, but B, also because like they might do something unexpected. Width getter, height getter, tile width getter, tile height getter, no setters. This is what we want. So uninstall, and then install this version. Oh, where did Pygame Display go? Didn't I open Pygame Display? Yeah. Huh. And I don't know, we could do something pretty basic. Yeah. Why is this edited? Label.label? I don't know why I made that change. Maybe I wrote this before bitmap label existed and it had to change? Not sure. Okay, so that works. So now can we go... Let's copy those actually, right? Those are all in here. So I don't know for sure if this is... DisplayIO stubs. I think this is core stubs, which it looks like also actually have not been updated. Although that's weird, because those come from the doc strings, and this definitely changed the doc strings. But maybe I just haven't updated the stubs. That's probably it. My stubs is out of date, therefore it doesn't show these. It gets weird if you're working on core CircuitPython stuff intermixed with Blinka stuff. PyCharm doesn't know that this is like meant to run under Blinka versus core. So if you have core stubs and Blinka installed, it's going to be a little confused because some stuff is going to exist in both places. And then it's, you know, and even another factor is if one or the other is out of date compared to the other, like stubs I haven't installed new for a while. But Blinka DisplayIO, of course, I just installed the current version just a moment ago. I think this should work, though. Yeah. So that one is a single tile, 260 by 360 tile size. One thing that might also be good to test is tile grid inflator. So we can put the castle sprite. We don't want to add it. Oh, main group. Nice. Keep doing Alt-Tab, trying to go back to the camera to see it run after I save, but obviously we have to actually run it because it's Blinka, not microcontroller. So tile grid size in tiles is 10 by 8, and then 16 by 16 is the tile size, which does match this example. So that part I think is working good. Let me go make sure actions passed on this one. Oh, they didn't. Oh, they did. Did you see that? They just had X's here. Weird. So what happens with bitmap when we initialize this? It's put onto _bitmap. Bitmap height and width get set, which these are just local variables. They're not on self. They get set into tile width if the tile width was 0. They get checked for size. They get checked for divisibility by tile size. That's really it. Where do they get used from? Get checked here. Interesting. Not sure why that check exists. Copied into local variables. This is a PIL method, I think. I'm not sure exactly what it does. Maybe combining multiple images together or something. Transform for scale and mirror and transpose. So I guess fill area, which is what this is in. I guess this is gonna get called automatically, so maybe changing the bitmap will not actually be that difficult. Maybe we can just change self._bitmap and then everything else takes care of itself, potentially? So there's more checks we should do. I'm curious though. I'm gonna try to see if it actually does work before I start doing much more testing. Because if it doesn't work, then we might need to do stuff differently. But if it does work, when we just don't pass it anything that's wrong, that it's not expecting, then we'll know that we're on the right track and we can just go back and add those checks afterwards, which is actually how I did it in the core as well. So weird not to go to device workspace instead of, or buddy, please stop. Why do you want up there all of a sudden? I'll be back. Buddy. Ah. Okay. I'm happy it's not the window. Seems less damaging, hopefully, than the window. So he has managed not to scratch the window, which is nice. Oh, that's weird. Has one import that's before the, interesting. Just doesn't live parse it, huh? Whoop. Okay. Right. I guess we could use these, but... Is it after? Just BMP1. Should have it on here. And I guess probably 0? No, 1 and 2. Can't set attribute. Hmm. So I don't believe I had to change that in the core. I think in the core, pixel shader already was writable. This part I added, forgetting and setting the bitmap. But yeah, pixel shader existed already. I took some space out of it, but yeah, these already existed. Okay, so that looks like just the difference between current Blinka DisplayIO and Core is that Blinka doesn't allow setting the pixel shader. Oh, I don't think I typed those. New branch. Bitmap setter. From Adafruit main, no track. Maybe these should be up by pixel shader setting. Hopefully this will also make it less likely for there to be merge conflicts. Where is pixel shader? What? Okay, and same thing here, like we'll do the checks. It actually works. For the split second it was showing, it looked messed up. I wonder if that's because it changed one thing and not the other, though? Yeah, Okay, that totally was the issue. Is it changed the bitmap, but it didn't change the palette, and that made it look all staticky. Because it failed to change the palette last time, but now it's changing both, and it's working perfectly. We should put basically the same checks we had here, which was check the type and raise unsupported type if it's not one of the valid types. So we'll do that first. Let me also type these. Nice. Awesome. That's cool. With the Funhouse, I haven't even run it on the Funhouse, so you're the first person to run that. I thought we talked about making a protocol for these. I'll type these as I go since I messed up, didn't do the last one. So returns bitmap or on disk or shape. This one accepts bitmap or on disk or shape. Pixel shader we should here be the same as this. Okay. So when you go to set it, if yes is instance? So if it's not this or just or. You need slashes here or something? No, and. We want and. So obviously it can't be. It's only going to be one of them. And if it's none of them, that's when we want to raise. So if it's not a bitmap, and it's not non-disk, and it's not a shape, then we know that it's not one of the valid types. Guess we'll raise the same kind of error, which was type error, unsupported type. So now if we try, like, put it to a string. Perfect. So we got our type check. What else do we have here? So this, basically, this whole thing is the type check in C. It's also, I don't know, instantiating the object somehow. I don't know if instantiate might not be the right verb, but it's also getting an object or inflating or whatever, turning it into the type of thing we want it to be to use it, which we don't have to do in Python. Okay. Must be same size. Which just comes from dot width on all of these. So let's say new bitmap width does not equal current bitmap width, or new bitmap height does not equal current bitmap height. Raise, what did we do? Value error. New bitmap must be same size as old bitmap. I don't know, is it customary to have these be sentences with periods or not? These ones aren't, but I wrote them, so I may have done it wrong. So if these are both equal, then this will not be true and it will not raise the error. If either of them are not equal, then it will be true and it will raise the error. So let's test this one also as we go here. Whoop. Sorry there in the Twitch chat. Schmelly Orc, I like your name. Pygame question mark. Yeah, sorry. Hopefully you're still there. If not, sorry. Probably left. I'm not completely ignoring the chat. I don't know, you don't need to... I didn't notice you for a minute, I apologize, but also, like, I am kind of also working on stuff too, so... Gotta have a little bit of patience, and I have multiple chats that I'm watching, trying to watch. Obviously not doing as good as I could, but... Okay. Where are the other checks? Whoops, this is the wrong spot. So that's actually the only checks. Just it feels like a lot more, because there's a lot of boilerplate for the C code. It's like this whole thing has to be all three separate things because of the way types work in C, but duck typing makes this one line if. Easy peasy. Right, so I was thinking we would need the divisibility check, but the truth is we actually don't, which this is coming back to me from the core because we went through the same thing in the core. Like, we would need to check if it's divisible by the tile size like this, but we don't actually have to do that because we're just checking if it's the exact same size. And if it's the exact same size, then we know it's still divisible by all the same things. So we don't actually need to check specifically the divisibility. Do we need to check anything on the pixel shader? I don't think we do. So again, pixel shader was already settable before I made this change. Don't know if it does do any kind of checks on it. It does do a type check. Okay. Yeah, we might as well do that actually. How you doing, Schmelliork? You like you ever played with CircuitPython, or is this all new stuff to you? New shader is instance. Well, not as instance. So flip this one back too. If it's not a new pixel shader and it's not a color, oops, and wrong slash. I don't ever type these slashes, honestly. I think I've typed more of these new line slashes today than ever in my life. Usually PyCharm just puts these in because my line's too long. And I format palette. Is this Matt? Oh, I spelled it wrong. Pygame? So I don't know how much you know about CircuitPython. I am using Pygame to basically emulate a microcontroller screen. So like kind of the core concept of what we're working on is Python that runs on these little devices like this. There's a microcontroller, like this chip right here is the main computer. But then like right now, this cat, right now, what I am working on is Blinka DisplayIO, which is a version, like a implementation of CPython, regular desktop Python, that allows you to run the same types of code that you can on these microcontrollers, but on like Raspberry Pis and other Linux computers. And so then I created this Blinka DisplayIO Pygame display, which is quite a mouthful, but it basically builds a virtual screen, kind of like this one, that allows you to run the same, hopefully the same. What we're fixing right now is actually some differences, but lets you run hopefully the same code that you can run on the microcontroller, but here we're trying to make it run on the desktop PC, and it uses Pygame as the drawing engine to make this window. Let's do our type check. I swear, buddy, please get down from there. Buddy, ah. It's like Climbing upon and standing upon a wire rack shelf that just does not have a flat thing for him to actually stand on. He's gonna like, his leg is just, your leg is gonna fall right through those wires, buddy, and then you're gonna be stuck there. That's not what we want. Okay. So type check the pixel shader. Did we save that in? Not quite. Raise. What did we put before? Unsupported type. Unsupported type. New pixel shader must be color converter or palette. Although that is kind of an arbitrary restriction, I think if you had a list of colors, you had any object that allows square bracket accessing, I don't know what the proper term for that is, but like square brackets 0 to get the first element or whatever, and it had colors in it, then you should be able to use it, honestly. I don't know why it needs to be specifically exactly a palette or a color converter. But I guess the core does do it that way, so we should keep it the same, I guess. But it's kind of an arbitrary restriction in the core as well. A list of colors should work the exact same, I think. I guess the difference is it doesn't have, palette doesn't have like growing logic. Palette is a static size. You initialize it at a certain size, and it cannot get bigger or smaller, but a list obviously can. So if we set the pixel shader to a string, then this will raise. Ooh. Images do not match. Does it always fail the same way? It does. Why does none of this point to any line in my code? Doesn't close right either. Does it still work? Huh. So that's weird. It crashes, but not because we're setting the pixel shader to the wrong kind of thing. We probably ought to allow, well, no, I guess none. I don't know. Maybe none should raise. I mean, it should based on the code now. Or not. Okay, now I'm thoroughly confused. Did I not install this version? Because 123 is definitely not a color converter and not a palette. I must have not installed this. Did it again. Going back there, expecting it to just be running. Okay. Yeah. Didn't update it. So maybe this was failing because it was lacking the type check. And it just failed in a different way since we didn't have it implemented yet. Yeah, okay. So it tried setting it to a string, and then something else internally tried doing something with that pixel shader, which was actually a string instead of a pixel shader, and then that's the error that we got. So we're actually preventing that error by raising this one, which is the proper error, when they actually set the wrong kind of thing onto this. None should also, I think, raise the exception, right? I think it should. Okay. For a second, I thought it wasn't gonna. Yeah, it does. Okay. Perfect. I think that's what we want. We're... Okay, no. Okay. Thought we got the old YouTube pause again. Okay, did I fill out all the types, or are we looking here? And that was the only check in core? Yeah. Okay. So we have return, argument, and return. Return, argument, return. We're missing one. Pre-commit. Ah. So we did bitmap, both properties, pixel shader, setter. 6270. Tabs. Got the Titano on that one. Ah, that's the StockPy portal. The other one, 4242, that must be the Titano, I guess. Oh, Gamer. Gotcha. I think maybe the Pygame they were referencing was Pygame, the CPython Pygame that's used in this Pygame display, I guess. Although I do have my Pygamer right here. Well. We could do a quick recording. Okay, let's do the types on the first one, and then probably wrap it up for now. Oh, I didn't update main? I guess though, because I did fetch and then I created the new branch from main. It should already be updated. Whoop. Well, this comes after anyway, doesn't it? Should be int, should it? Not come after? No. No, okay. With int tiles, yeah, that should always be an int. Honestly, all of these should always be an int. Well, this is a setter, actually, of course, so that's going to be none. Oh, no, it's not. This is a getter. We don't have setters for these. So, yeah, all of these will actually just be int. I have no setters, so none of them are going to return none. Yeah. Okay. I think actually the one other thing I will do, let's see if we can run